Okay, we're gonna get started on something fun, combining colors together. I've got some inspiration here, just ones that I've done before. And as you can see, you can really just go wild and create some really cool effects within your planets. Each one is definitely unique. So we're gonna work wet into wet for these first few, and I've already got my circle wet. The colors I'm going to be using are Phthalo Blue by Daniel Smith and Deep Scarlet by Daniel Smith also, but you can experiment with any of your colors, of course. So I think I've got my number 6. Yes, I have my number 6. You can experiment with brush sizes. And I'm going to just start with my blue. You can start with either color, any color. And I'm going to get this really intense and wet, of course, and just start to apply color to the water using a little drop and release, but also painting. And when I'm doing these, I like to just move the paint around into different areas. So I'll paint like half one color and half another color, but I don't do it in half-half. Alright, so I've got some blue laid in there pretty good. And now I'm going to actually drop down a size because I can see that my water content is kind of high, so I'm going to use a smaller brush, and I'm going to go into my Deep Scarlet, get that good and wet. And start to lay in this color. So typically what I do is I don't go all the way to the line of where the blue is. I just go right beside it and let the two colors mingle and merge how they want to. This will all depend on, of course, the paint that you're using, how much it spreads, and once again, it's a great way to get to know your colors because different colors will do different things in the water, and they'll do different things with each other. So, really good way to see how they're going to interact with each other. So I think now I'm going to drop down to my 2, and this is when I just start to kind of manipulate and really make my planet kind of have some different looks to it, start adding darker areas, lighter areas, and I do that with my 2 because I have more control over the water content and over the paint. So right now I'm just kind of cleaning up my edges, making sure that that paint is going all the way to the edge. And what I'll do is start adding darker areas. So I'm going into more blue paint using a little less water, and I'm just going to add some darker areas to this blue side, just in a few places. Don't want to overdo it. And I always make sure, well, at least I try, most of the time I will leave these white paper parts. It's kind of a glowy effect. So now I'm going to do the same thing with the red. I'm just taking some more intense red and just adding it into a few places. You can really just get lost doing this, just create all sorts of effects. And this is also when I use the method of just dropping water. I always make sure that metal part is dry, just dip my brush end in the water. So I have this pretty saturated with water, and I can just drop some water blooms here and there on both sides. And I can also manipulate these white edges. So if I just apply a little more water to where that white is, it will start to push back on the red and give it even more of a glowy effect. The same thing in this area. So just adding a little more glow. And I'm just going to clean up my edges a little more. And this is also a time when you can add salt and alcohol, which I'll show you how to do those things as well, and just really make your planet all kinds of crazy good. So I'm gonna call this one done. It's nice and red, white, and blue. But we'll do a few more of these. This is just, like I said, you could just get lost in creating effects in this. It's wonderful fun. Okay, so our next one, we're going to be doing pretty much the same thing, wet into wet, combining colors, but this time we're going to experiment with an exploding watercolor, and the one that I'm using is Quinacridone Violet. It's by Core, and a lot of their colors are actually exploding colors, so just keep that in mind. I think I'm going to use colors that I know kind of go together. So I'm going to use this Phthalo Blue, I'm going to use the Quinacridone Violet, and I think I might even add a little Opera Pink. This is Opera Pink. I think I used, yes, the Daniel Smith, but Winsor Newton, a lot of companies make this one, and they're all really very similar. So I had my circle wet. It looks like it's kind of drying, so I'm just going to add a little extra water. This is what I get for jibber jabbering too much, a dry circle. So I'm just going to re-wet it a bit here so my paint will flow. There we go. Okay, and I'm going to start with the non-exploding colors. So feel free to experiment and go either way. But the exploding colors will tend to just take over. So I kind of like to add them last. So I'm just going to add in some blue here and there. I'm going to drop down to my number 4 because my water content is getting a bit high. And I'm going to start adding some pink. So you see there where I went right through that blue, that means that I now have a bit of purple color on my brush. So whenever you do that, you want to make sure to clean and start over. Just kind of do it in segments when you start to touch areas. So for instance, if I go right in here and add pink, now I have purple on my brush, so I'll rinse off and start over. So I can tell that my water content is really high probably because I had to re-wet my circle. So just monitor things like that, and I'm coming in with my small brush, and I'm just gonna pick up I go into the water content, I'm pulling it out, and I just dab it right on my paper towel, just because I want these to do what I want them to do. A little bit, I want them to work with me. I don't want to work against the water. So I'm just going to clean up that water content just a little bit, and especially knowing that I'm about to add an exploding color. And while I've got my 2, I will go ahead and make a few areas more intense and clean up some of my edges here. Grab a little more intense pink and put some of that down as well. I love this color. Okay, so now I'm going to go to my 4, I'm going to start adding this exploding color and we'll see what happens. So I'm making it pretty intense, not a lot of water, like a little less water than I used with these two, just because I know it likes to move around a lot. And I'm just going to do some drop and release and just let it push where it wants to push and go where it wants to go. And you of course can add into places that you've already painted. Just experiment with that. Now I'm dropping down to my 2 and I'm just going to start to apply a little paint to this edge here. And you can see how crazy these exploding paints, they just kind of do what they want to do. But you can make some really cool effects. This one especially, I mean, they're all different, so each exploding paint will do something completely different. But this brand in particular, when you drop it, it will start to push water away, and the middle part will start to dry, so you can see you get this little effect in here of it's like a circle within a circle, and it really comes in handy with creating planets. It's very planet-like. So there you go. That is just combining more colors and experimenting with exploding color and non-exploding colors, and it's just so much fun. You can just do it all day.